Just a handful of years ago, this Lancer SE would have been a pretty cool contender in its category. Today, in 2013, it's like taking a trip back to the Soviet Union. Everything's a generation behind from another era. Let's drive this 2013 Lancer SE and check the tech, or at least the places where it should be. Let's face it, Mitsubishi's not long for the U.S. market if they don't fix some things and fix them fast. Their car lineup consists of 3 versions of this Lancer and the Galant, which I didn't know they even made anymore. They're pinning all their hopes right now on the 2014 Outlander. Meanwhile, we've got this Lancer in kind of mid-trim to show us where the company's gone stale on the vine the last couple of years. Now, inside the Lancer, the first thing you're struck by, and I mean struck by, are the acres of bad plastic. More than you'll see anywhere this side of a recycling plant. Hard, bad finishes that don't really gap well. Gah. Brings us to this head unit that is right out of the 80s. AM, FM, single CD, and an orange dot matrix display. Functional, yes, but just barely. That's bass. We've upgraded, as you can see, to the Rockford Fosgate audio system, 710 watts. That also rolls in 6 CD player, like anybody cares about that anymore. Huge old sub in the trunk. You see our aux jacks are down there. Infuriatingly, they are a pair of RCAs, which I've heard from a lot of you about, saying, why RCAs? Give me an aux mini, that's what I always have. Now, if you want Bluetooth hands-free, don't get all excited. We have the buttons, we just don't have the functionality behind them. That's part of an extra cost option that also rolls in Bluetooth streaming and a USB jack. As I understand it, though, the USB jack replaces the aux input, doesn't augment it. I could be wrong on that, but that's how I read the spec. A little disturbing if it's true. Now, navigation's optional, which would bring you the LCD on this dashboard. That would also roll in some different media choice of a 40 gigabyte hard drive for media, which you're never going to use. So it's basically a $2,400 navigation system. I'm not big on that. Knowing Mitsubishi's finesse with cabin tech, I'd blow off the nav entirely, at least on this generation. Now, the SE has the middle engine of a Lancer. You can actually, on the lower trims, get a smaller engine, a 2-liter inline-4. We have the 2.4-liter inline-4. There's a hotter one above this for the Evo, of course. We'll deal with that in another video. 168 horsepower, 167 foot-pounds of torque out of this engine, sitting very conventionally crossways here in the front. Car weighs about 3120, gets up to 60 miles per hour in just a tick under 8 seconds while delivering 2229 mpg. 1 gearbox on the SE. The CVT, continuously variable transmission. You cannot get the 5-speed manual unless you go down trim, and you can't get Mitsubishi's dual clutch automated manual, their excellent SST gearbox, unless you go up to an Evo. So you're stuck with this combination. Now, what our Lancer does have that sets it apart in many ways is all-wheel drive. They call it all-wheel control. You may have seen that rocker switch in the cabin. You've got a 2-wheel drive front mode. You've got an automatically managed all-wheel drive mode or an all-wheel drive lock mode, putting it in the more serious realm for those of you that live in serious weather. Now, I've never worked on a farm, but I'm pretty darn sure I could write some Steinbeck caliber prose about driving a tractor at this point, because I've spent time in the Lancer. This SE has a coarse harshness about it that's coming in from both road vibration as well as from this engine that makes some horrible noises. It's not a pleasant experience. The CVT transmission takes what might be a nice motor, there might be some good power and response in there, I believe there is, and really mutes the hell out of it. Now, the all-wheel drive, as I mentioned, is a bonus on this vehicle. It's one of its strong selling points. Unfortunately, it's April in San Francisco. I don't have any way to really put it to a test, so we'll take the word of many, many owners who've attested that it's a great system to have at a really good price. So there's not a whole lot as the takeaway from this car, except that it's one of the last econo boxes that is still an econo box. Most inexpensive compact cars have kind of gone up market these days and left the econo role to the really small cars, the little subcompacts and little urban A-class and B-class cars. So this is an odd role that Mitsu is kind of hanging on to here, and one that they know they have to evacuate fairly soon. Okay, here's how I'd price out a Lancer SE, if you must. $21,090 gets the car delivered in SE trim. Remember, CVT only at that level. Then another $15.50 gets you the premium package. Good choice here. Rockford Fosgate audio, 6 CD, satellite radio, power glass roof. It's a good value. Then you also want the Fuse hands-free kit. For just $400, you get hands-free calling, thank you, Bluetooth streaming, USB adapter. What I wouldn't do is spend the nearly $2,400 on the navigation plus 40 gig hard drive thing. Their tech isn't good enough to warrant what is one of the higher prices for that system. Bottom line, you buy a Lancer because you really value that all-wheel control technology. That is definitely a point in its favor. And Mitsu's got a reputation of building cars that are tough as the day is long. But this guy's on its way out, as is this era of Mitsubishi lameness. So you really need to wait.